Hey there guys, my name is Clem from the Graphic Tech, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how to use cron jobs with Node.js. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to leave a like and subscribe because that really helps the algorithm. Now without any further ado, let's get with the video. Before we get into the programming stuff and the Node.js stuff, let's take a bit to talk about what a cron job is exactly. And a cron job is just a time-based scheduler. Well, by that, it means that it schedules tasks based on time. Like, say, send an email to said person or an SMS to said person on a certain time, right? That's exactly what a cron job is. And it could also be you want to clear some server logs or some file that's keeping track of some state in your server. You want to clear that maybe every 5 a.m. in the morning or something similar to that, right? You want to clear some logs at certain points in time. You want to send an SMS. So it ranges from, that to several examples like updating a user's database um, value and whatever. So if you want to update that at certain times, you use a cron job. So that's what a cron job is, and that's what it's used for. So in this course, I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how to make use of Node.js cron jobs and the weird syntax that comes with it. I'm going to demystify every single thing. So let's get at that, right? The first thing I want to sort of do is talk about installing Node.js, right? Before we get with this course, we need to have Node.js installed. So go to nodejs.org and just download any of the versions. Either of them should work fine. And as you can see, or as you saw in the previous screen, I'm using a Visual Studio Code. So feel free to go to code.visualstudio.com to download Visual Studio Code. I usually use this because it's very good and has a lot of cool snippets. If you want to use another one, that's fine. You'll follow along just fine with whatever code editor you are using. Awesome. So this is the package we're going to be using. It's called Node Cron, or Node-Cron. It's a really in-depth package. There's a lot of explanations here. So basically, you can just Google Node Cron, and the first result should be this npm package repository, right? Although I'll leave the link to this in the description below. You can feel free to go through it and study it, and do whatever, but I'm going to be covering every single bit of this awesome, powerful package, right? So that's cool. So now let's get on with the programming, right? As you can see in this file, I have my index.js and empty JavaScript file, which we'll be working on. And there's this info.txt, which I'll get to in a second. Don't need to worry about this right now, just to explain some basic concepts of Node Cron. And before I do anything, of course, I would want to initialize my npm, right? So I'll just run npm init -y to say yes to every single question. Awesome. And now I have my npm package.json here. The next thing I'll do is I need to run npm install --save node cron. It'll take a second to run, and we'll be left with an installed Node Cron package. Awesome. If we go to our package.json, we should see that we have Node Cron version 3.0.0. At this point of recording this video, this is the latest version, so this should work perfectly for us. Yeah. So now that we've seen that everything is working well, let me just quickly change my script here. Start, and I'll just write node index.js, and I can now run npm start, and it runs the index.js file. So now I'm basically done with my package.json here. So I'm just going to close that, and we're going to focus on how to make use of cron jobs exactly. How do we do that? So let's visit the repository now, and let's quickly just copy and paste the first line of code here so we can see how the exact structure is here, and I'll explain every single line. Do not worry about that. So let me just change this from var to const. So what's happening in here is we are requiring the node cron package, and we are saving it into the cron variable, right? And the cron variable has a couple of methods, which I'll go through. And the most important method to us is the schedule method. And this schedule method takes in two arguments. The first argument is the cron string, which confuses a lot of people, right? It's basically a time string. I usually call it, but it's called a cron string, and it determines. If I go into what it determines, let me talk about the second argument. The second argument is the function that will be executed when the conditions of the cron string are met. So these are the two major arguments. There are other arguments which I'll get into later in the course, but those are the two major arguments. Now, this cron string, as I said before, is actually a time string, and it has a specific set of schemas right here. So before I go deep into what all these gibberish signs mean, let me just edit this code a bit. Let me just add a star here. Again, I'll explain this very soon, and say running a task every second. So basically, this cronjob function runs this function, this anonymous function here. It's gonna execute it every second. So let me just run that real quick and say npm start. So you can see it's logging, running a task every second to the console. That's awesome, right? So let me just remove end the process, and let's talk about what the hell this cron string represents, right? So I added a star to it, and I knew why I needed to add a star to it. So let's demystify this, shall we? So I'm going to go into my info.txt file over here, and as you can see, my info.txt file is just a let me arrange this better. 1 second. My info.txt file is just a regular txt file that's explaining what each of these stars over here mean, right? That's all is explained. There's no big deal about it. And this graphic, to give credit where credit is due, is actually from the repository here. I'm just going to try and explain it to the best of my ability. So as you can see, as you've probably seen here, each of the stars represent certain time denominations, right? The first star represents the amount of seconds. The second star represents amount of minutes. The third position here represents amount of hours. The fourth one is the day of month. The fifth is the month, and the final is the day of week, right? So generally, this stars here, what the stars indicate is select every single number in a range of seconds. Let me explain that better. So a second ranges from 0 seconds to 59 seconds in this package. So from 0 seconds to 59 seconds, because there are actually 60 seconds in a minute. So this ranges from 0 to 59 in this package. And if we select star here, we're telling the cron job to execute this anonymous function here every single second, right? So basically how this is read is execute this anonymous function every single second of every single minute of every single hour of every single day of the month of every single month and of every single week, right? So it seems confusing, but that's generally how we read the cron string. So we want to run the function every single day, every single second of every single minute, of every single hour, of every single day, of every single month, and of every single day of the week. So this is how it's read. Why is it important to read it like this? Let's say I want to only run this on the on a minute 3, or let me say a minute 16, right? So what this how to read this expression is run this on every second of the 16th minute of every hour, of every day, of every month, and of every day of the week, right? So this function, this anonymous function, if we copy paste this into this cron string here, this will basically run this function, this anonymous function here, for every second of the 16th minute. Right now we are in, it's 3:16 where I am. It's really early in the morning. So it's going to run this for every second of the 16th minute of every hour, of every day of the month, of every month, and of every day of the week. It's important for me to keep saying this so that it can actually stick. So before I go into more syntax changes, let me just show you what range of values actually goes into each of these spaces. And this could be, for the second, it's optional, right? And I'll explain why it's optional. For the second, it could be either star or the number 0 through 59. So, and for minute, it could be either star or the number 0 through 59 as well, because there are 60 minutes in an hour, right? And for the hour, it could be star to 23. 23 or 32, 23. It could be star or, 0 to 23, right? Because we go from the 0th hour to the 23rd hour of the day, right? So it's the final minute of the day is 23:59. So, it actually stops at the 23rd hour. Then we go back to the 0th hour. I don't know if 0th is a word, but you get what I mean. And for the day of month, it ranges from, it's either star or it's 1 to 31, because they are a maximum of 31 days in a month. There is no month that has more than 31 days or less than 1 day, right? And for the month, this is where it gets really interesting, right? It ranges from 1 to 12, right? Or star, or it could be January, February, March, or whatever you want to say, want to write, whatever month there is up till December, right? Or it could also be in the shorthand version, right? You could write Jan or Feb or Mar, the shorthand version of month names, basically. Let me just take this back a bit. Okay, of month names, right? So this is the interesting part about the month part of the cron string. And for the day of the week, it's kind of similar, but there's some nuance to it, right? It ranges from 0 to 7, where both 0 and 7 represent Sunday, but 0 represents Sunday, 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday, 3 is Wednesday, 4 is Thursday, 5 is Friday, 6 is Saturday, and 7 is Sunday, right? So this 0 to 7 is actually 0 to 6, but both 7 and 0 represent Sunday. 0 and 7 represent Sunday. Yeah, and this could also be Monday, Tuesday, right? Or, the shorthand Mon, Tues, and basically, and so on and so forth till Sunday, right? So this, instead of writing the star here in this position, you can actually write, you can actually write Sunday, right? With the first letter of the word capitalized, right? So this basically means, if you want to read this, it means run this for every second of the 16th minute of every hour of every day of the month of every month on Sundays. That's basically how this is read, from left to right. So yeah, so this is a valid cron string right here. So I've said a lot about how the cron string works in this cron strings schema. That's the hardest part about this, pronouncing cron string. Um, so I'm going to talk about why this second is considered optional. If I take out this second star here, or this second position here, this is still a valid cron string. This just means the first item here represents minutes. The second item here represents hours. This represents day of month. The fourth represents the month of the year. And the last one here, the fifth, represents day of week. As you can see here, they are 5 different stars. But if I add a 6th star, the function, the schedule function, will understand that the 6 stars represent that we are putting seconds into view. So we want to take into consideration seconds. So that's exactly what that means. So yeah, just to illustrate how this works with a practical example, let's say I want to run this on the 21st minute or 22nd minute of every how do I put this, of every day of every month or whatever, right? I'm going to run this for every second on the 22nd minute. So I'll say this is my second, this is my minute, this is my hour. So I'll just change it to 22 real quick because the time is 22 right now and I want to run the function as quickly as possible. So this is going to run for every second on the 22nd minute. So let me just change it to running so it can be more descriptive. So if I run this function right now, you can see it's showing running because we're on the 22nd minute. And let's just wait for 1 minute to pass. Once 1 minute passes and we're no longer in the 22nd minute, it will stop running. So right now this is running for every single second as long as we are in the 22nd minute according to my time, right? Yeah, so it's still running. It's kind of hard to tell, but if you can look at the this bar here where my mouse is highlighted over, this bar, you can see it's still running. And now we've hit 23, and now this bar has stopped and it's totally stopped running. It's no longer running anymore. That's because, see, it's not running at all. Like, it's not even increasing whatsoever. That's because we are now in the 23rd minute. But this function says run this only for the 22nd minute. So you can get really deep with this, right? You can go crazy with this. You just take in the explanation I gave about this schema of the cron jobs and just create your own special cron options, right? And this is just really scratching the surface of how powerful the cron jobs are. This is just the first instance understanding the syntax, right? Then I want to talk about using ranges. So we can look for a specific amount of we can look for a specific time of a particular time denomination, like the 22nd minute or the 1st minute or the 3rd minute or the 5th second. But we can also make this run within ranges, right? We can say, I'm just copy this and say, I want to use ranges. I want this function to run from the 1st to 10th second of every minute, of every hour, of every day of the month, of every month, and of every day of the week. So this is going to run for the first 1 to 10 seconds, right? And when it hits the 11th second, it's going to stop running entirely. This is kind of hard to find. This is kind of hard to how do I describe it? It's kind of hard to catch because we don't have a second timer here. Okay, we kind of do my time here is a second timer, so we can kind of catch it. But I'm not gonna leave you to do that. I don't want this video to be longer than it needs to be. But basically, this means the first to the 10th second of every minute and yada yada yada, right? So this is how we use ranges. We use 1 hyphen the length of time we want this to go on for. So we can say, okay, I want this to also happen from only January to March, right? And this is a valid string. It's going to run from January to March, right? If I cancel this and let me just take this out, you can see that this probably will not run, right? It won't run because right now we are in what month are we? We're in September, so it's not going to run. But if I change it to maybe September, I haven't tested this, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And let me say the 10th to 40th second, right? It should run. So running on new block. So if I make this run now and do this, you see, I get running on new block because we are within the range of January to September, and we're in the range of the 10th to 40 minutes. But watch what happens when we leave the 40-minute mark. You see that we have stopped, right? No more log into the console because we have passed that 40-second mark, pardon me. Once we get back to 10, we can see that it's going to resume the block running. But right now it's stopped completely because we have just hit the 40-second mark. But it's going to resume once we hit 10 and this will begin to shrink. You can see that this is beginning to increase now. So that's really cool. Maybe I can make it more obvious by adding some randomized value here by saying math.random or something, so that will make some sense. So if I do this, you can see that it's returning a random number every time because we're within the range of 10 to 40. But once 40 stops, once we hit 40, you can see that it's gonna come to a sort of more or less hard stop here, right? So we have reach 40 and it comes to a hard stop. It stops running the function. So I'm going to end this because this is understood. This is how we use ranges. And now I want to talk about you can also, apart from using ranges, you can also select certain, so selecting certain time points. Right? So by selecting certain time points, I mean, I can just come here and say, instead of 10 through 40, I want to select second 10, second 12, and second 40. And I can also select minute 30, minute 45, and minute 12, right? You can go really crazy with this just to see how it works, but I'm not going to go through all this because this video is going to be incredibly long, right? I encourage you to do this on your own. Just practice along so you can understand the syntax. So basically, how this is read is run this for the 10th, 12th, and 40th seconds of the 30th for the 5th and 12th minute of every hour of every day of every month from January through to September, and for every day of the week. It can get really complex. I don't want to go way too complex for those that don't understand this very well, but that's the general idea. We can select certain time points, right? Let me just make this very simple. You can select certain time points. So this is 10th and 12th for this range, right? I don't want to keep on repeating myself. We get the point. Then another thing we can do, another really cool thing is we can use step values, right? Basically, if we want to say run this every 3 seconds or every 10 seconds, instead of running every second, we can say, okay, run this every 2 seconds, right? And how do we do that? We say, let me just copy this. and paste this here. Let me remove this January to September. We'll get the point. Make this a star. So if we want to run something want to run a cron job every 2 seconds, what we'll do is we'll say, instead of having a star here in the second position, we can say star slash 2. This slash represents step. In steps of, that's how we read the string. So we say run this every 2 seconds, in steps of 2 seconds, for every minute, hour, day, month, and week, right? So this is gonna run every 2 seconds. So I can say running every 2 seconds. And let me just take these out, comment these out rather, and so it's gonna run every 2 seconds. See, it's not running as often as it was running in the past. I can make this to be every 5 seconds so that it can be more glaring to us, right? So it's gonna run every 5 seconds. So that's 5 seconds. I didn't change the language, but we get the point, right? So that's how step values work. Oops, I copied and pasted something really weird. So yeah, that's the general, the major steps, I should say, the major syntax-wise things that are very important with regards to cron jobs. And the final thing with regards to cron jobs I want to look at is cron methods. So cron methods, right? I know this is a very long video. It's almost over, I promise. So basically, cron methods are very important, especially when we're talking about actually controlling when to start, stop, or destroy these tasks that we're executing, right? So this cron job is basically, once the file is running, they are going to run regardless of what we want to do about it. It is going to run, right? But if we save them in a variable like this and say const task is equal to, let me just make this a very simple cron job. Copy this and yeah, just gonna copy this and paste this here. So if we wanted to run every second, for example, right, I can just do this, and yeah, and if I say, let me see, 1 second, when I save this into a variable, I have the power to start and stop it at will, right? So if I say I want to stop this, the method I can use to stop this is to say task.stop, right? This is the method I can use to stop this. Then if I want to start it, I can say task.start. So let me just show you how the stop works. It's going to be a really, really quick function. Let me just say stopping task. So I can just say npm start. You can see that it didn't even execute because this function task.stop stopped it before it could even start in the first place. But I think if I do this, the function still runs, right? If I do this, whether or not I do task.start, the function still runs pretty well. But task.stop stops the function from running. So we can create a button in a UI to kind of like execute task.stop to actually stop this function, this cron job rather. So yeah, this is one very important cron job, important method, I mean to say. So after we start the task, after we stop the task, we can actually start the task back. So let me see if this will work. I haven't actually tested this, but it should work generally. So if I say task to stop, task to start, see, it's actually started the task back. So basically, task that stops the task temporarily. Then you can wait a couple seconds, or you can start it immediately, which I did here. I started the task immediately, and the task resumed after I did task the start. So this basically resumes the task that has been stopped. Then the final one, or not the final one, the third most important one is task.destroy. And task.destroy makes it such that once you destroy a task, you cannot start the task again. So let me just experiment that. Let me try to start it after it's been destroyed. Let me just cut this one out. So I'm gonna run task.destroy, then task.start, and I expect to get an error, right? So let me just write npm start. So you can see I get an error. Oh, task.destroy is not a function. Oh, that's the error I'm getting. Weird. Task.destroy. Maybe I think it's probably the version of the cron job that makes it not to be a version. This is weird. Oh, it's okay. Let's just forget about task.destroy then, because according to the documentation, it seems to be a function, but all of a sudden it's not a function. Weird. Maybe they took it out from the recent build. Well, we learn every day. So task.destroy does not work. So let's just leave that one out. So task.start and task.stop. I generally never use destroy. I hate things that have a possibility of showing errors. So I generally just use task.start, task.stop for all my cron job applications. Yeah. So what else? There's one final thing I kind of wanted to cover, and that is time zones. When we're talking about time zones, it's right now these tasks that are here, they're being scheduled for the time zone of our computer or our server. That's what is happening right now. It's recognizing that our server is at a certain time. That's why it's running the function in a certain way, right? In a certain at the time of the server, basically. But we can actually override that. We can actually override that behavior and give it an actual time zone. So let's say we want this function to run, this cron job rather, to run. Let me just create a new heading here and say time zones. And then we just comment this ones out. So for time zones, we want the tasks or the cron job to run every 10th and let me just say no. Let me do this. Let me say we want it to run every 10th minute, right? Every 10th minute of every hour, right? And every 10th, or okay, to make it make more sense, let it run every 5th hour of every day, right? Every hour 5 of every day, right? So I can actually take this second out, because if I don't take this second out, right, and I leave it like this, it's gonna run for every single second, right? But if I give it like a 0, or if I give both the second and a minute a 0, you can see that these will actually run exactly at 5 o'clock, 5 a.m. on that day. So it's going to run on the 0th second, the 0th minute, and the 5th hour, right, of every day, right? So this basically is going to run at 5 a.m. every single day. That's what this means. But 5 a.m. could differ for Canada. It could differ for America. It could differ for Asia. So how do we account for that with cron jobs? Well, we basically unlock the secret ability. I'm joking. We add a third argument called the options argument, and this has a couple of options which are pretty useful. There's the scheduled option, which could be true, it could be false. If we set scheduled as false, it means that this won't run unless we run task.start. The default is true. I believe the default is true. Yeah, the default should be true. We can check that in the type definition file, but the default is true. But if we put false, it means it doesn't schedule. But it's kind of redundant in our case, so I'll just leave it out. I'll just comment this out. But the major part of the time zone aspect is to add the time zone property according to the documentation. So add the time zone, and this time zone string, you can see that we the VS Code, I'm giving like a lot of options for different time zones, right? So let's say we want to run it at 5 a.m. New York time. So we say America/New York, but there are other options here. All we need to do is just do control and spacebar to give us an option of the different time zones around the world. Right now I'm in Africa, so it's probably gonna be I don't want to reveal my country, but it's somewhere in Africa, right? But if you're in America, it's gonna be like maybe America Los Angeles, American Mexico City, Monterey, or whatever, right? So this is gonna run this task at a certain amount of time, but in this time zone that you've specified. So that's enough rambling for this course. I've basically covered every single thing. There's one more part that is not super significant, but I guess if you don't understand the syntax of this, it could become significant, right? So yeah, I want to talk about validation, right? This is not, it's important, but again, it's not super important, but it's something that is really cool to know. You can validate if a cron string is okay or if it's not okay, right? Let me just comment this out and say I want to validate if this cron string is okay. So I can just say cron dot validate is a validate method, and I can say star star blah 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 blah. Let's write a couple of gibberish and save this in a variable. Say const is valid. Then I want to console.log is valid. Obviously this will not be valid because that's gibberish. That is not a valid expression. So let me just log this. Let me just run the function. So you can see I get false because this is not a valid cron string. What if I say, let me just write the basic cron string star 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 star, right? This is 6 stars, right? If I run this file again, see, you see I get true because this is a valid cron string. And that's all there is to it, really. There's no big deal about the validate method. It's just to verify if a string is valid or not. And I guess it could be important if you're making the user sort of select a valid string for some reason. I don't know, but it's like, I guess that's the most valid use case for this, right? So that is basically all there is to cron jobs in Node.js, right? I know it was a little rocky along the way, but you know, I believe I've explained everything in the best possible way, right? And I hope you understood it. If you still have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. And that will be it for me. In the next video, I'll release a short video on a practical application of cron jobs. This is just syntax training I just did right now. So in the next video, I'll be releasing something on the practical application of cron jobs. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video. Goodbye.